She was the only one at her mother's funeral. Minutes later, 80 Hell's Angels showed up to comfort her. The sky over Bakersfield was the color of dust and grief. Emma Sullivan, 8 years old and so painfully small, stood before a freshly dug grave with a wilted daisy clutched in trembling fingers. Her black dress, it wasn't really black, more like faded charcoal, had been bought second-hand when her grandmother died. It hung awkwardly on her thin frame, sleeves too long, collar too stiff, as if the world expected a child to dress properly while it ripped her life apart. There was no sound except the shifting wind and the soft whisper of the cemetery's tired grass. Bakersfield air always smelled faintly of dry dirt and oil, but today it felt heavier, like the world itself was mourning. No one came. She kept turning her head toward the gate, toward the street, toward the church parking lot. Every few minutes, hope forced her to look again. Maybe someone would change their mind. Maybe a friend of her mother had gotten the date wrong. Maybe a neighbor remembered. But the parking spots stayed empty. Even the air seemed to avoid being here. Mr. Peterson, the funeral director, shifted impatiently. He was a tall, bony man with gray whiskers and sad eyes that had seen too many days like this one. Days where grief was small and quiet, and nobody showed up to carry it. "Emma," he began gently, "we should begin. These things, they don't get easier by waiting." She didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on the polished wooden casket that held the only person who ever loved her without condition, Sarah Sullivan. Her mother. Emma swallowed, and her voice came out barely louder than a breath. "I just thought maybe someone would come." The funeral director's posture sagged, sympathy tugging at his face. "I know, sweetheart, but we'll still honor her, you and me." "She deserves that," Emma nodded. She lifted the wilted daisy and placed it on the coffin. Her fingers lingered there, small hand resting on smooth wood as if she could somehow feel her mother's warmth through it. "I'm here, Mommy," she whispered. "I didn't leave you." Her throat tightened. The world blurred. The grief was so much bigger than she was. How could an 8-year-old hold something this heavy? Just as Mr. Peterson lifted his prayer book, a distant thunder rolled through the still air. Emma's head snapped up. Mr. Peterson froze. Rumble, low at first, like storm clouds grumbling across a faraway horizon. Then louder, closer, growing until the very ground felt like it had a heartbeat. The birds took flight from nearby trees. The funeral director's eyes widened. "Oh dear." Emma didn't know why, but her pulse quickened, not in fear, but anticipation. Something was coming, something big. The noise swelled into a roar, a chorus of engines, powerful and raw, tearing through the peaceful silence of the cemetery like a defiant cry against death itself. And then she saw them, dozens of motorcycles, Harley-Davidsons, gleaming chrome and steel, rolling through the cemetery gates in a slow, unified procession, jackets black as night, patches glinting in the sun. Hell's Angels. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Mr. Peterson stumbled backward, panic flashing across his face. They came in like an army of thunder, and then they stopped. The engines cut off one by one until silence returned. Heavier now, vibrating with presence. The funeral for one woman had suddenly become a gathering of giants. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped forward first. His beard was streaked with gray, face lined not with cruelty but pain lived and survived. Leather vest worn smooth with time. His boots crunched the gravel. He removed his helmet slowly, respectfully, holding it against his chest like a soldier saluting. His eyes, sharp, tired, soft, found Emma. "You must be Emma." His voice rumbled like the engines behind him, rough but steady. Emma froze. Her throat tightened. She managed a tiny nod. "I'm Jack Reeves," he continued quietly. "Your mama. She was family to us." Emma blinked up at him, stunned. "My mom knew you?" Jack paused, emotion flickering through his hardened features. "She saved me," he said simply, as if that explained everything. Behind him, men and women dismounted, removing helmets, tucking them under arms. Some bowed their heads, some wiped at their eyes. They didn't look like the monsters movies painted them as. They looked like people holding back heartbreak. Among them, a woman stepped forward. Sharp eyes, long, dark braid, a posture that said she could carry the weight of the world and not break. She knelt so her gaze met Emma's level. "My name's Angela," she said softly. I knew your mom a long time, Emma stared. There was something mother-like in Angela's eyes, firm, fierce, protective, something Emma hadn't felt since her mother took her final breath. Angela continued, voice steady. Sarah asked us to be here, Emma gasped. She asked you? Jack nodded once. A solemn promise sealed years ago. Your mother loved you more than life. She made sure you wouldn't say goodbye alone. Emma's knees weakened. Her lips trembled. She wasn't alone. Her mother hadn't left her to grieve in silence. Jack stepped beside the casket, his large hand resting gently on its surface. Brothers, sisters, he called out. Every biker bowed their head. This woman, he began, voice breaking, never rode a mile with us. But she held more strength than some men who rode 100,000. She saw people, even the broken ones. A silence thick with reverence settled over them. She once told me, Jack continued, kindness is how we fight the world when it tries to turn us hard. And she fought hard. Hard as any of us. He looked to Emma, and now we stand for her, because she stood for us. The bikers stepped forward one by one, each laying a flower, roses, daisies, a wrench wrapped in a ribbon, a necklace, a single black feather, silent tributes to a quiet warrior. Emma's tears finally fell. But for the first time today, she didn't cry alone. The Hendersons' home looked like a place that never exhaled. The hedges were cut in clean squares. The porch light bulb was spotless, not a single spider web permitted. Inside, the living room felt like a museum version of family, so perfect it frightened touch. Plastic runners stretched along the carpet like invisible rails you weren't allowed to step off. Mrs. Henderson met Emma at the door with a polite, airless smile. She was a tall woman whose collarbones stood like gates in her throat. Her hair pulled into a bun so tight it made her eyes look watchful. Shoes off, she said gently. But it wasn't a suggestion. Mr. Henderson lifted Emma's small duffel from the trunk. He had careful hands and a quiet, apologetic posture, as if his life were an accident he was constantly cleaning up after. Emma slipped off her flats, the dirt from the cemetery still in the creases. She cradled her empty hands together, hating how naked they felt without the daisy. Come along, Mrs. Henderson said. We keep the bedrooms tidy here. You'll find fresh sheets, folded clothes, an alarm clock, and a chart. A chart? Emma asked. For chores, quiet hours, and study time, Mrs. Henderson said. A schedule keeps sadness from spilling. She glanced at Emma, softly, as if she'd said too much. They showed her the room. 2 twin beds, one unclaimed. The walls were painted a blue that pretended to be kind. On the dresser was the chart, hand-lettered. Wake at 6:30, bed by 8:30, homework between 3:30 and 5 on, no TV on weekdays, no visitors, no calls after 7, bathroom cleaned on Wednesdays and Saturdays. All drawers must close completely. Emma stood there, the silence wrapping around her like a thin sheet that pretended to be a blanket. Dinner is at 6, Mrs. Henderson said. We hold hands and say grace. Mr. Henderson lingered a moment after she left. If you need anything, he said quietly. My toolbox is in the garage. Emma nodded. She didn't know why that felt like comfort, but it did. He turned to go, then paused. I'm sorry about your mother. Her throat tightened. Thank you. When she was alone, she sat on the edge of the bed and opened the nightstand drawer. There was a Bible, a pencil, and a pad of paper. She touched the pencil, as if it might remind her how to write her way out of a feeling. She tried to pray. But the only thing that came out was a sentence that didn't sound like a prayer at all. Please don't let me forget the sound of her laugh. Dinner was perfectly measured. Steamed chicken, green beans in a straight line, a heap of brown rice shaped like a hill that had been sanded. Grace was brief and well-behaved. Conversation was polite and careful. Afterward, she rinsed her plate twice because the soap squeaked. Mrs. Henderson nodded once, approving. In the room, Emma lay on her back staring at the ceiling. Houses had sounds, plumbing heartbeats, dishwasher breaths. But this house was a library at midnight. She closed her eyes and saw her mother's hands, knuckles nicked by plates and hot coffee, moving through steam and laughter at a diner she'd never seen. When sleep finally took her, it wasn't gentle. It dropped her onto a dark road. Engines thundered, but not in threat, like 1,000 lungs exhaling together. She turned and saw a parade of chrome and leather, headlights like floating moons. A woman with sharp eyes and a long braid, Angela, lifted 2 fingers to her brow in salute. Sarah walked beside them, apron tied, a pencil tucked behind one ear, smiling the smile she'd saved only for Emma. Emma ran toward her. She woke to the alarm at 6:30, mouth full of her own name like it had been a word shouted across distance. After school, Emma sat on the edge of the living room's plastic path and tried to sound like a person with permission. "Mrs. Henderson?" "Yes, Emma." The woman didn't look up from her ledger. Could I go to Rosie's diner? Just to see where my mom worked." The ledger paused. "One heartbeat, too. Your mother's associations were complicated," Mrs. Henderson said delicately. "I think it's best if we keep you away from that environment." "That environment," Emma repeated, trying to taste the edges of the words. Mr. Henderson, who'd been aligning the mail so all the stamps faced the same direction, looked up. His voice was careful, like something that might break if said too loudly. "I'll drive her," he said. "I'll make sure everything is what it ought to be." Mrs. Henderson pressed her lips together, measuring this breach of her neat borders. She exhaled. 30 minutes, she said finally. "And Emma, no visits with any of the biker people." Emma's heart sank and trembled at once. Mr. Henderson grabbed his keys. "Let's go." They drove with the windows cracked, Bakersfield's dry breath trickling in. He didn't speak. He was not a man who knew how to fill silence. When they reached the edge of downtown, the diner appeared like a postcard that had chosen not to age. Chrome trim, checkered tile visible through the glass, a neon sign buzzing the word Rosie's in cursive pink. Mr. Henderson turned off the car and placed his hands on the wheel, relieved by decisions that didn't require him. "You have 30 minutes, he said softly. "I'll be right here. Thank you," Emma whispered, meaning it as much as she'd meant anything in days. The bell above the door sang a note that sounded like mercy. Warmth hit her. Butter, bacon, burnt caramelized edges of pancakes, coffee that had seen too many mornings and refused to give up. The floor tiles were black and white squares that made the whole place look like it was telling the truth. "Emma?" a voice stumbled. Emma turned. A heavy-set woman with red hair pinned in a lopsided bun stood behind the counter like a lighthouse keeper. Her eyes filled so fast the world blurred in them. "Baby," Rosie breathed, coming around the counter with a speed that surprised her own hips. She wrapped Emma in a hug that knew exactly how to hold grief without shattering it. "I'm sorry I missed the funeral," Rosie said into her hair, voice breaking. "I was out of town ordering supplies for the month and they canceled my flight and, sweetheart, I'm so sorry." Emma nodded against her shoulder, the apology landing like a blanket thrown over a shaking dog. "It's okay," she said because she had learned the word okay could make other people breathe. Rosie held her at arm's length. "Your mama worked for me 7 years. Not once called in sick. She would have slapped me silly if I closed this place to cry. Said, people gotta eat, Rosie. Grief is hard work." Feed it a pancake. The bell rang again. Emma turned. They didn't wear leather vests. No patches, just jeans and t-shirts. But the air shifted around them. People made space without being asked. Presence was a garment you wore whether you liked it or not. Grizzly, larger than the doorway for a second, stepped in with Angela, whose braid laid a line down her spine like a rule she'd written for herself. A few others followed, soft-voiced and careful-footed, like they'd taken off their boots to walk across someone's heart. "Kid," Grizzly said, tipping his chin, "we ordered pancakes because your mom said they fix a day that shouldn't be." Emma tried to smile. It came out as a tremble that pretended to be brave. Angela touched the back of a chair, and somehow that gesture asked permission. "Sit with us?" Rosie squeezed Emma's shoulder. "I'll bring the good butter." They took the corner booth, the kind with a view of both door and kitchen. Habit, not fear. A plate the size of a steering wheel slid in front of Emma. Pancakes browned to the exact edge of crisp, a square of butter melting like snow remembering its other life. "Eat," Grizzly said gently. "If your stomach forgot, your hands haven't." Emma cut a triangle and discovered her mouth could still taste joy. For a while, no one talked. The kind of silence that held things, not withheld them. Forks clicked. Coffee sighed into mugs. Somewhere a dish clattered, and everyone looked up and then looked away because nothing had broken. Grizzly cleared his throat. "Your mama found me 15 years ago," he said. Words like gravel rolled in a warm palm. Wife had just died. I wasn't fit for talking. Sat right there, third stool from the end, day after day, hoping the coffee would make me forget my own name. He glanced at the counter. The stool stood empty as if it were listening. She didn't push. Just topped off my cup and left a lemon drop next to it. Never said a thing about it. For a week. Then she said, "You're allowed to carry it, big man." "You're not allowed to let it carry you." Grizzly swallowed. "I didn't know a waitress could hand you a life raft." Angela's eyes softened. "I was 17 and a mess. Pregnant. Scared. Smart enough to be ashamed. Dumb enough to think shame was useful." She smiled, brittle at the edges, then true. "Your mom slid me a plate of fries and said, 'Eat first.' Decisions go better when the belly's not lying about being the brain." Then she wrote 3 numbers on a napkin, hers, a clinic, a shelter. Didn't tell me what to do. Just said, "You are not a mistake, but you will make them, so will we." We keep going. Emma looked down at the syrup river she'd built. It was easier to breathe when other people held the air up. A man across from her with a prison tattoo softened by time rubbed his jaw. "I came home from 3 years upstate with a head full of noise. No one hires a man with a record except people who have one and want you to keep it. Your mom told Rosie to put me on dishes. Said, 'I don't need your past. I need someone who can stand the heat and not complain about prunes.' I've been clean 9 years. He smiled. "Still hate prunes." Rosie set a milkshake down in front of Emma. Vanilla, thick, a cherry like a small holiday. "Your mother said milkshakes are for when the day refuses to cooperate." "Emma," Angela said carefully, "your mom talked about you like the moon. Always there even if clouds showed up." Emma's throat clenched. "She never told me any of this." "She didn't want you carrying her heavies," Grizzly said. "She wanted you to carry your own." Rosie slid a photo album onto the table. The plastic crackled when Emma opened it. The first picture made her laugh through her nose, a sound that surprised her. Sarah stood behind the counter with a birthday crown made from coffee filters, cheeks pink with laughter. A candle stuck in a stack of pancakes like a flag declaring sovereignty. There were photos of the Christmas mornings Rosie opened early, Polaroids of regulars holding babies. Angela, younger, rounder with hope and terror, biting a fry as if it were a decision. Grizzly, beard shorter, eyes red, a lemon drop glowing like a tiny planet beside his coffee. Halfway through, Emma found it, her mother in a simple dress, one hand on her belly, the other holding a tiny pair of socks. The joy in her face was so bright it bent the light. On the back, in careful block letters, Sarah had written, "Emma, my miracle." My second chance, the page blurred. Emma blinked hard. Her fingers trembled against the plastic. Angela reached, then stopped, letting the choice to be held belong to Emma. "She wanted you to know," Grizzly said softly, "but not too soon. She was afraid the world would think less of what made her strongest." Emma touched the words again, as if heat lived in ink. Grizzly nodded to one of the men, Marcus, who slid a white envelope across the table. It was thick, the kind of thick that meant something was inside that weighed nothing but changed everything. "Your mother was proud," Marcus said. "Too proud to ask for help. Not too proud to plan." Emma opened it. Inside were documents and words she didn't fully understand. Policy, beneficiary, trustee. Numbers that made her dizzy. Letters on law firm stationery. A note in her mother's handwriting, simple as a grocery list, for Emma's future. College, a safe place, or a way out when nothing feels safe. Don't buy nonsense. Buy time, choices, and toothbrushes. Mom Emma laughed. It came out as a sob wearing a costume. We added to it, Angela said quietly. Folks chipped in. A lot of folks. Why? Emma asked. It wasn't doubtful. It was a child's sincere confusion at an avalanche of kindness in a world that had mostly rationed it. Grizzly leaned in, voice rough silk. Because that's how family behaves. Emma swallowed. The word family had an ache in the middle that felt like a splinter pushing its way out toward the skin. We've also talked to a lawyer, Marcus said. And social services. There are legal ways, proper ways to make sure you're safe. No rushing, no bending rules. Your mom made us promise. Promise what? Emma asked. That we'd never make you choose anything out of fear? Angela said. Only from strength. The bell rang again. A woman stepped in wearing scrubs under a denim jacket, sun lines at the corners of her eyes, the kind of face people told secrets to accidentally. She looked around, found the table, and her whole posture softened. Michelle Torres, she said, offering a hand to Emma. Friend of your mother's. I work with foster kids. And I'm also the annoying aunt who shows up at inconvenient times with good advice and extra napkins. Emma shook her hand, feeling the surprising comfort of calluses on a doctor's palm. I'm here for you, Dr. Torres said simply. Legally, practically, emotionally, snack ally. I'll help you understand options without anyone pushing. What options? Emma asked. Staying in foster care for a while, Dr. Torres said. Temporary guardianship with someone your mom trusted, like Angela, after a court review. Or remaining close to this community as family friends while you decide. All of them have rules. All of them have people. You won't be alone in any of them. Emma looked from Torres to Angela to Grizzly to Rosie. The room blurred at the edges and then came back into focus like a lens deciding what mattered. Your feelings get a vote, Dr. Torres said. Not the only vote, but a real one. Rosie slid a napkin across the table with an extra cherry on it, because sometimes law required dessert. Mr. Henderson's reflection appeared first in the window, hands folded, worry like a hat he didn't know how to take off. He stepped inside and stopped short, as if the warm air were a wall that asked for passwords. Grizzly stood, posture non-threatening but unignorable. Sir, he said, voice respectful, we'll make sure everything goes by the book. Mr. Henderson nodded, relieved and spooked by the same promise. Time's up, Emma, he said gently. She stood. Her chair squeaked, a small protest. She looked at Rosie, at the album, at the milkshake half drunk and no longer cold. At Angela, whose eyes said, I'll be here whether you come back in an hour or a lifetime. At Grizzly, who looked like a mountain that had volunteered to become a porch. Emma reached for the leather envelope with the documents. Marcus placed it in her hands like a ceremonial object. It made a soft sound, like paper deciding to be a future. Can I see you again? Emma asked, voice small but steady. We'll clear it with your social worker, Angela said. We don't step outside lines. We redraw them with permission, Dr. Torres smiled. I'll call Mrs. Chen. Emma nodded. She turned to go, then stopped. The words felt like breaking a seal. Thank you, she said. For showing up. Grizzly swallowed. That's our favorite thing. They watched her leave. The bell chimed. The door shut. The booth sat still, holding the heat of people who'd chosen each other. Back in the sedan, the air felt competent and unkind. Mr. Henderson adjusted the rearview mirror, searching for something decent to say. They seemed respectful, he offered. They were, Emma said. He nodded, lips pressed thin. I'll speak to Mrs. Henderson. She hugged the envelope. She was not ready to open it again. Not because it scared her, but because it didn't. It felt like a hand on her back saying, forward. Mr. Henderson. Yes? Do you ever wish your house would mess up a little? He smiled, surprised at the warmth it brought to his own face. Every day, he said. Don't tell my wife. She laughed, a small bell of sound she hadn't expected from herself. At the Hendersons, the air smelled faintly of lemon and discipline. Mrs. Henderson listened to the report with a posture that said she'd consider being fair later. Bikers, she said, placing the word precisely on a shelf of disapproval. Emma, I must insist you keep away from that crowd. Mr. Henderson, not quite as quiet as usual, cleared his throat. They were decent. And the doctor, Torres, seems reliable. Mrs. Henderson inhaled slow. We protect this home by boundaries, she said. Boundaries aren't judgments. They're fences that keep dogs from running into traffic. Emma pictured the funeral, the engines, the men and women removing helmets like hats in a church. They're not dogs, she said softly. Mrs. Henderson's mouth softened at the edges, just a little. No, she admitted. People rarely are exactly what we call them. That night, Emma lay in the blue room with the neat sheets and listened to the house hum under the weight of its rules. She held the leather envelope against her chest and thought of the photo of her mother, joy spilling out like a light that didn't know how not to be seen. Choices, toothbrushes, time. She didn't know yet which door she would choose. But for the first time since dirt fell on the lid of a box, she understood that the hallway had more than one. Morning brought a school day that pretended to be normal. Kids whispered, not because of her mother, but because of the bikers. They'd seen photos on someone's uncle's Facebook. Emma moved through the hallways like shallow water, stepping quiet, making ripples only she could feel. At lunch she sat alone. Then wasn't. A girl with chipped nail polish and kind eyebrows slid into the seat opposite and opened a sandwich cut diagonally. "I'm Sophia," she said. "The diagonal is for aerodynamics." Emma blinked. "Bread flies better down the throat that way," Sophia explained. Emma smiled. "I'm Emma, I know," Sophia said, not unkindly. "My cousin's aunt's mechanic's boyfriend is in a riding club. Everybody's cousin is somebody's mechanic around here. They ate. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it wasn't not." When the final bell released them, Mrs. Chen waited by the steps. Her hair was in a practical bun. Her eyes were soft. She looked exactly like someone who knew where the pens were. "I spoke with Dr. Torres," she said. "And with Ms. Angela Chen, no relation, though she's been kind enough to make that joke first every time I meet her." She smiled. "If you'd like, we can arrange supervised visits while we discuss longer-term plans. We'll do it properly." Emma exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding since birth. "Yes," she said. "Please," Mrs. Chen nodded. "Good. I like it when a plan has more hands than mouths." Rosie's felt different with permission. The bell sounded like a door knowing the name of the person walking through. Emma slid into the booth and didn't apologize for existing in the space she took up. Angela had a folder this time, not because she wanted to be a clipboard, but because sometimes clipboards are shields. Grizzly wore a denim shirt with sleeves rolled to show forearms that announced a lifetime of arguing with wrenches. Marcus had that lawyerly look that said he knew how to read the parts of paper that tried to hide their meaning. "We'll take this slow," Angela said. "Legal guardianship is a process with steps and chairs and people who say, 'Your Honor,' and 'sustained,' and so on. We won't trip over any of it." "I don't want anyone to be mad," Emma blurted, surprising herself. "No one gets to be mad at a child for wanting a family," Dr. Torres said from the end of the booth, where she'd arrived with the timing of a doctor who knew when a conversation needed a monitor. Rosie set down a basket of fries that could test the strength of a table. "And if they do get mad," she added, "they can come see me in my rolling pin, which has opinions." Emma laughed, then looked at Angela. "Why, you?" she asked. The question held no doubt. It asked for a story. Angela sat back. She didn't practice softness. She practiced honesty. "Because your mom and I used to argue about which of us made better coffee. Because she told me to stop using a hammer when a wrench would do. Because she looked me in the eye one night and said, 'We don't get to choose our childhood, but we can choose whose childhood we protect next.'" She paused. The room leaned closer. "I run a garage," Angela said. "I know how to fix things that should have lasted longer and didn't. A home is just a different kind of machine." Emma nodded. A quiet, grateful nod that belonged to a person with decision-making rights. "And," Angela added, "I have 2 kids, Miguel and Sophia, who are bossy about snacks and generous with time. There are rules in our house, but they're the kind that catch, not the kind that cut. Like a net," Emma said. "Like a net," Angela agreed. Rosie arrived with another milkshake, the exact kind, the exact cherry. "Repeats are how the heart learns," she announced and set it down. Emma wrapped her hands around the cold glass. The chill traveled into her bones, tamping down the fever of grief until it could be held without burning. "Emma," Marcus said, tapping the envelope with a practiced fingertip, "there's enough here for you to breathe for a while. College someday if that's what you want, or time to decide. We'll set it where it can't be taken. You'll meet the banker and the judge before anything moves. Transparency is just honesty with a calculator. Can some of it be, for now?" Emma asked. "Like shoes I didn't get at the thrift store because they squeak, and a lock for the diary I don't have yet, and a visit to the ocean? I've never—" "Yes," Rosie said too loudly, because some yeses refused to be polite. Grizzly coughed into his fist, suspiciously. "Ocean's a decent place to hear yourself think." "Engines sound good against it," Emma smiled. "Do engines sound good against everything?" "Not funerals," Grizzly said. "But we tried to make it the kind that says we heard her." Emma's eyes watered. "You did?" Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway at the exact moment 30 minutes passed, as if she'd trained her internal clock on a courtroom schedule. She gave a small wave that said, "I know time limits are annoying and sometimes necessary." Emma stood. Angela stood. They met in the space between table and aisle. "You'll come by the garage?" Angela asked. "I'll show you why hammers are liars." Emma nodded. "I'd like that," Grizzly squeezed her shoulder, a pressure like a vow. "We're not a rumor," he said. "We're a phone call." Emma looked around the diner, the counter, the album, the third stool from the end, the window that reflected a girl she did not entirely recognize yet. She reached for her jacket and realized she wasn't cold. "Thank you," she said again, "for all the roads." "Pick one with a view," Rosie said, "and stop by for pie." Emma followed Mrs. Chen into the mild afternoon. The world outside felt bigger, not because it had grown, but because it had opened. Back at the Hendersons, Mrs. Henderson listened to Mrs. Chen's outline with arms crossed but not locked. When she spoke, the words were not surrender. They were a recalibration. "If this is to happen," she said, "it will happen properly." "Properly," Mrs. Chen agreed. "That's my favorite speed." Mr. Henderson brought out a plate of store-bought cookies as if offering a peace treaty signed in sugar. He placed one beside Emma's hand and winked like a boy who'd just gotten away with something small and good. In her room, Emma sat at the desk and opened the pad of paper from the drawer. She wrote, "I am allowed to choose. Mom wanted me to choose. Family is who shows up. Ocean? Underline, underline, circle, star." She added, very small at the bottom, "Maybe Angela." She put down the pencil and stared at the ceiling that had hidden corners she'd never noticed. The house still felt like a museum, but the exhibit had changed. A girl learning the shape of her own life. That night the wind came warm across Bakersfield, carrying the rattles of palm fronds and the far-off hush of highways, roads telling secrets to each other after bedtime. Emma dreamed of her mother again, but this time Sarah stood not beside engines, nor behind a counter. She stood in a doorway with two lights behind her, one from a kitchen where a family talked too loud and laughed with their mouths open, the other from a garage where a tool clinked and someone swore and then said sorry because kids were present. "Which way?" Emma asked. Her mother smiled, the kind of smile that meant both. Emma woke with the answer in her chest like a bird that had found a window. She didn't know the forms to sign or the hearings to attend or the grown-up words to say. She knew only this: she would not go back to being a child at a grave where no one came. She had found the road where they came. She would walk it. She pulled the covers up and felt not safe. Not yet, but held by the promise of properly and the sound of engines that could learn to whisper at the edge of a girl's sleep. Outside, somewhere in the dark, a Harley turned over once, twice, then purred into quiet as if to say, "Whenever you're ready." 1 or 2 weeks after the diner meetings, Emma stood in a family courtroom holding a stuffed folder and a hope that felt too large to carry in her small chest. The room smelled like old carpet and anxious decisions. Lawyers murmured. Paper shuffled. A judge with silver hair and tired kindness adjusted his glasses and looked at Emma as if she were the only real thing in the room. "Emma," he said, voice soft but commanding, "do you understand what this means?" Emma nodded. She was frightened and brave, and both were true. "You are asking to be placed in the temporary care of Ms. Angela Chen," he continued. "This is not adoption, not yet." "It's a legal guardianship review period," Emma swallowed. "I know, I just want to live where my mom's heart lived." The judge blinked, surprised by the poetry of a child who'd been hurt enough to speak in truths instead of words. He signed the order. Mrs. Henderson hugged her, a brief, reluctant, respectful gesture. "You're welcome here any time," she said, surprising herself. Mr. Henderson pressed a small set of keys into her hand. "To my toolbox," he said. "You'll fill yours someday." Emma didn't know what to say except, "Thank you for keeping me safe." Mrs. Chen and Dr. Torres smiled like two women watching a flower decide to bloom in the middle of a driveway. Angela stood waiting in the hall, hands in her jacket pockets, trying not to look like a person who might cry in public. "You ready?" she asked. Emma nodded. "Yeah." They walked out together. Angela's house didn't sparkle, it lived. Shoes by the door, mismatched blankets, a fridge covered in magnets shaped like wrenches and little cartoon ducks. The hardwood floors weren't shiny, but they had earned their scratches honestly. Miguel and Sophia barreled toward her like two joyful decisions nobody regretted. Miguel, age 10, serious eyebrows and a mischievous smirk. "We have bunk beds. You can have the top if you want." Sophia snores like a lawnmower. Sophia, age 9, hair in 2 messy buns, indignant. "I do not. My nose just dreams loudly." Emma laughed, startled by her own sound. Come meet the rest, Angela said, opening the back door. Sunlight poured into a yard filled with half-built motorcycles. A dog named Muffin, who absolutely looked like a muffin would if it were made of muscle and questionable choices, and a garage that stretched wide like a church for machines. Chrome Palace. On the wall hung photos of rides. Charity events, bikes polished like pride. A punching bag swayed gently in the corner, bandaged from the last time someone needed to hit something instead of someone. Angela handed Emma a milk crate. Your locker, she said. Everyone has space here. A corner already had her name on it, painted in uneven blue letters, clearly done by Sophia, because the A was backwards. Emma's throat tightened. You did this before you knew I was coming. Angela shrugged. Hope is free. That first evening, Angela sat on the porch steps beside Emma, passing her a soda can they tapped like a quiet toast. House rules, Angela said. Ready? Emma nodded. Rule 1. You earn your spot by being yourself, not being perfect. Okay. Rule 2. If you're upset, say so. We don't fix things we pretend aren't broken. Emma nodded slowly. Rule 3. Chores are teamwork. We lift weight together. You'll learn garage skills. You'll help clean. And you'll teach Miguel math because I refuse. Miguel yelled from inside. I heard that. Rule 4, Angela continued. No hitting unless it's practice or self-defense. And I'll teach you both because rage without aim is how people get lost. Emma swallowed. Rule 5. Bedtime is negotiable if you're reading or thinking useful thoughts. Crying counts as useful. So does staring at the ceiling and letting your brain defrag. Defrag? Emma echoed. Your heart's a computer. It needs time to sort stuff. Emma smiled faintly. And Rule 6, Angela said softly, voice lowering like headlights dimmed for a deer crossing. No one here disappears alone. Ever. Emma breathed in the rule like it was oxygen. That night, nightmares came. Hospital machines. A breath stopping. A daisy wilting. Dirt hitting wood. The sound of an engine that wouldn't start because grief had stalled all motion. Emma woke, shaking. Moonlight painted silver bars across the room like quiet fences. Sophia mumbled in her sleep on the bottom bunk, hugging a plush dragon like it was responsible for dreams staying good. Emma curled her knees to her chest. A soft knock. Angela cracked the door. Nightmares? Emma nodded. Angela sat at the foot of the bed, not touching. Just present. When grief knocks, she said. We answer so it doesn't pick the lock. Emma didn't understand every word, but she understood the meaning. Angela stayed until her breathing slowed. When she rose to leave, Emma whispered, Thank you. Angela paused. Kid, she said, you don't have to thank me for showing up. Showing up is the job. Emma slept. At Chrome Palace, mornings smelled like coffee and engine oil. Angela tossed Emma a rag. We start simple, she said. Find the bolt. Hold the bolt. Don't strip it. Stripping is for clubs, not threads, Emma giggled. The sound bounced around the garage like it belonged. Angela taught her how to change oil, check tire pressure, clean carburetors, identify tools by weight and feel, swear correctly but sparingly. Miguel handed wrenches like a surgeon passing scalpels. Sophia drew dragons on grease-stained paper. Muffin the dog supervised, judging everyone. Angela guided Emma's hands. Engines don't lie. If it shakes, it's asking for help. If it leaks, it's telling a secret. Emma nodded like these were sacred verses. 1 week in, Grizzly arrived carrying a box like it was the crown jewels. Club got you something? He said. Angela shot him a warning look. If it's a vest with patches, we're gonna have words. Grizzly shook his head. Kid's not old enough to wear colors. We all know that. He handed the box to Emma. She opened it. A small leather jacket, soft, worn in all the right places, lined with red satin. On the inside, stitched by hand, to Emma, to remind you you're built from strong roads. Sarah's family. Emma pressed her face into the jacket. It smelled like leather, dust, and belonging. Angela cleared her throat roughly. We attach no symbols until she chooses her path. Grizzly raised both hands. Just leather, no flags. Pride only, not pressure. Emma hugged it like armor made of memory. School was not Chrome Palace. Some kids whispered biker girl like it meant bad girl or dangerous or we don't. understand you, so we're scared and pretending it's judgment. A boy asked, do they fight cops? Another sneered, do you ride motorcycles to kindergarten with murderers? Emma didn't cry. She didn't shrink. She remembered rule number 2, say when it hurts. She lifted her chin. They ride for charity. They fix engines. They save stranded people in the desert. They don't let kids bury parents alone. The cafeteria went quiet. A teacher overheard, walked over, and placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. Sounds like good people, she said. Emma nodded. They are. Later, when someone muttered foster freak, Emma squared her small shoulders and said, some families choose you. That's better than some who get stuck with you. That shut them up. 2 weeks later, Angela rolled a small BMX-style bike to Emma. No engines yet, she said. Balance first. Speed later. Fun always. The club rode beside her, adults on Harleys, Emma pedaling furiously but proudly. Chrome Palace kids rode scooters. Muffin trotted like a bouncer with somewhere to be. They rode at sunset, sky copper and lavender. Wind hit her face. Joy stung like cold water in summer. Grizzly honked once low and gentle. Emma lifted one hand from the handlebars, just a moment, just enough to feel like flight. That night, in her bed under soft blankets, Emma whispered toward the ceiling, Mom, I'm safe. And somewhere in the memory of the world, a waitress with tired feet and infinite patience exhaled relief. Autumn came to Bakersfield the way a careful mechanic tightens a bolt, slowly, a quarter turn at a time. Mornings were crisp. Evenings smelled like fireplaces remembering how to burn. Emma had grown an inch of quiet confidence since moving in with Angela. Steady eyes, steadier hands, and a laugh that showed up more often without apologizing. But confidence is a road. Every road has potholes. It started in the hallway between third and fourth period. Lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking. Someone's perfume like a cloud pretending to be a person. Tyler Marsh, a senior with perfect hair and an inheritance of arrogance, leaned against the drinking fountain like it owed him water for free. Well, if it isn't motorcycle orphan, he said, too loud. The words hit Emma the way cold air hits lungs. She stopped, turned, and met his gaze without blinking. My name's Emma, she said evenly. Tyler smirked. Emma the charity case. Emma the biker pet. He flicked a glance at his friends. Audience secured, courage borrowed. You bring your little gang to parent night? What will they wear, leather or prison orange? A few kids laughed, the kind of laughter that tries to be brave and only manages to be mean. Stop, said a voice behind Tyler. Sophia, all elbows and fury, planted herself at Emma's side. She was a year younger but had the emotional stance of a dragon. Apologize, she demanded. Tyler rolled his eyes. Cute. Does your club do babysitting now? Emma took a breath that filled her whole body. She remembered rule number 2, say when it hurts. She remembered Angela's face when she'd taught her to hold pads. We don't throw first. We don't throw to win. We throw to stop harm. Walk away, Tyler, Emma said softly. I don't want this to be your worst memory. The warning didn't land. He stepped into her space and pushed a finger into her shoulder. It was small. It was enough. The shove tilted Emma back an inch. Her knee bent, her heel found a stance Angela had drilled into her during play sparring. Heels under hips, hands up, chin down. She didn't think. She aligned. Tyler's hand rose for another poke. Emma's forearm swept his wrist away. Her palm pressed gently, so gently, against his sternum and guided him back into the lockers with a thunk that sounded bigger than it was. She didn't punch, didn't scratch, didn't escalate. She stopped motion. You're done, she said, voice steady. Tyler shoved again, pride injured, audience shaky. Emma stepped aside. His momentum carried him forward off balance. She touched his elbow, 2 fingers, and borrowed his force, into a clumsy spin that ended with him catching himself on cold metal, a vice. Principal rounded the corner at the worst possible time and saw exactly the wrong 2 seconds. Emma Sullivan. Office now. Tyler straightened, breathless and red. Emma lowered her hands. Sophia's face was thunder and rain. I didn't, Emma started. Office, repeated the vice principal, and the sound of the word was a gavel. In the office, the air felt like the waiting room for bad news. The vice principal, Mrs. Bray, clicked her pen like it allowed her to decide outcomes more precisely. Physical confrontation, she said, marking boxes. 3-day suspension. Emma swallowed. I was defending myself. Witnesses saw you put your hands on a student. Emma thought of all the things witnesses miss: intention, pressure, whether a hand is a fist or a break. I didn't hit him. I redirected. Mrs. Bray paused, surprised by the vocabulary. Redirected? Emma nodded. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to stop. A knock. Angela stepped in, denim jacket, grease on her forearm like a signature. She met Emma's eyes first, then the vice principal's. Is there a world where we talk before we punish? She asked. Mrs. Bray sighed the sigh of educators everywhere, overworked, underthanked, allergic to hallway theatrics. 3 days is policy. Then we'll use them, Angela said, not arguing policy, just choosing purpose. She placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. We'll turn suspension into training. Emma's stomach sank with shame. I didn't mean to, Angela squeezed once. You did fine. We'll make you better. Across the room, Tyler sat with an ice pack and a story that kept changing. He looked at Emma like she'd stolen something he wasn't done owning. Emma looked back with something fiercer than anger. Pity day 1 of suspension. Chrome Palace transformed. Angela rolled the bikes to the back and cleared floor space. Grizzly arrived with a duffel full of pads. Marcus brought a whiteboard. Jackie Torch Chen, Angela's cousin, ER nurse, and infamous for making linebackers apologize, walked in with a gym bag and a smile that said, "We're going to fix what the world bent." Jackie bumped fists with Emma. "You're strong," she said. "We're going to make you precise." Training began with breath. Inhale like you're smelling trouble, Jackie coached. Exhale like you're fogging up the mirror to write "not today." They worked stance, not strikes. Deflections, not domination. De-escalation phrases. I don't want this. I will leave. Stop touching me. I will protect myself. Grizzly held pads. Emma's palms met the leather with thap, thap. Disciplined and controlled. Violence lives in confusion, Marcus said, pointing at the whiteboard where he'd written AM. Attention, intention, motion. Attend to the situation. Intend to end harm. Move with minimal force. Law lesson, Angela added. Words before hands. Hands before force. Force before injury. Injury only if necessary to get safe. Then stop. Then stop, Jackie echoed. Say the words. It helps your brain obey. They drilled until Emma's muscles learned what her mind believed. Power is a tool, not a trophy. That night she slept without nightmares for the first time in a week. On day 2, Coach Ramirez from PE stopped by. He was built like a retired mountain and had a calm teacher's trust. He leaned against the garage door and watched Emma catch a jab on the pad and redirect it like she was guiding a river into a safer bed. You're not angry, he observed. Emma lowered her hands. I'm not now. Good. Anger is a spark. Fire is useful. Wildfires aren't. He glanced at Angela. You know the Marsh family will complain. Angela folded a towel. They can. They can also raise a son who doesn't shove girls. Coach Ramirez smiled, then turned to Emma. When you come back, I want you helping me start a self-defense elective. For anyone who's been shoved, physically or otherwise. Emma blinked. You want me to help teach? I want you to help lead. There's a difference. She felt something rise in her chest that wasn't quite pride and wasn't quite relief. Purpose. It felt like purpose. On day 3, Mrs. Chen asked Emma to come to a mediated meeting at school. Tyler would attend with his father, a man who wore success like a shiny coat. Expensive. Warm, not quite his size. In the conference room, Tyler stared at the table. Mr. Marsh did all the talking. My son has never done anything like this, he declared. He was provoked. This? Biker influences corrupting the school. Angela sat straight, hands folded, silent and patient like a boulder that had decided not to roll downhill. Emma watched her breathe and matched the rhythm. Mrs. Bray cleared her throat. Tyler, would you like to say something? He lifted his eyes to Emma's. For a second, the performance slipped. He was just a boy who didn't know how to not be cruel when people were watching. I'm sorry, he said, the word shaped right and felt wrong. Emma thought of Dr. Torres's line, your feelings get a vote. She didn't have to accept a lie to seem nice. I accept that you said sorry, she replied. I don't accept what you did. Mr. Marsh scoffed. What else do you want? Emma held his gaze. I want your son to learn respect the way I'm learning restraint. Silence. Then Mrs. Bray, unexpected ally, nodded. We'll arrange restorative sessions. Both of you, separate, with Coach Ramirez. Angela's hand touched Emma's elbow under the table. Not a squeeze. A recognition. Afterward, in the parking lot, Tyler paused. You didn't have to go easy on me, he muttered. Emma shook her head. I didn't, she said. I went right on you. There's a difference. He frowned, confused. That was okay. Confusion is sometimes the first honest thing a person feels. Emma returned to school with a back straighter than when she left. Whispers followed, but they sounded smaller. People respect a person who refuses to perform their pain. Afternoons belonged to Chrome Palace. Angela moved her from oil changes to brake jobs. Stopping is as important as going, she said. Grizzly taught torque by feel. Tight enough to trust, loose enough to listen, he coached. That's how you keep parts and people from snapping. Jackie dropped by with flashcards. Anatomy, she grinned. Know what you're protecting. Emma learned bones and leverage, words like ulna, clavicle, sternum, and where not to aim. She learned bandaging and ice timing and how to say, I'm okay, in ways that meant it. Sometimes, after the day's work, the club would gather in the backyard, engines cooling, dusk landing on shoulders. Someone would tell a story about Sarah and the air would go gentle. Emma listened like a person filling a well. Trouble doesn't vanish. It changes costume. 2 months later, a customer arrived at Chrome Palace angry at the world and aiming it badly. He was mid-30s, sunburned, a ring of keys jangling like a threat. His truck needed work he couldn't afford. His pride needed a fight he hadn't earned. He leaned over the counter, breath sour with cheap courage. You people, he sneered at Angela, think you can upsell a man who knows engines? Angela didn't flinch. I think your calipers are shot, she replied, voice flat as a level. And I think you want to be mad at something that isn't me. He pounded the counter. I won't be cheated by some biker princess and her little orphan assistant. Silence. The kind that makes choices. Emma's hands trembled. She put them flat on the counter to still them. Angela's eyes flicked to Emma. Stand down. Watch. Sir? Angela said. We can do the repair or we can't. We can't do it for less than parts cost. We can recommend a cheaper shop. We can also ask you to leave if you can't be respectful. He spat on the floor. Muffin growled from under a workbench. The kind of growl that reminds evolution why people domesticated dogs. The man's eyes tracked to Emma. What are you looking at? She breathed in, smell the trouble. She breathed out, fog the mirror. Your brakes are dangerous, Emma said, calm. Please don't get on the road like that. Something in the word please punctured his balloon of rage. He deflated an inch, looked suddenly, fleetingly, tired. Get me the estimate, he muttered. Angela slid it across. He stared, he signed. He left, shoulders slumped, pride tired from carrying itself. When the door shut, Emma realized her knees were shaking. Angela leaned against the counter, exhaled, and spoke softly. You did perfect. We didn't win. We stayed decent. That's better. Emma nodded and, unexpectedly, cried. Not because she was scared, but because she had chosen who she was under pressure and liked the choice. That weekend, a letter arrived addressed in unfamiliar looping script. To the girl at the shop who said please, it read, My brakes were as bad as you said. I drive long nights for work. I was angry at bills and life and myself. Your please made me listen. You saved me from killing someone. Maybe me. Maybe somebody's kid. I'm sorry for my mouth. Thank you for your courage. Emma read it twice, then a third time. Angela framed it and hung it by the time clock. Proof that gentleness isn't weakness, she said. Emma took a photo and sent it to Dr. Torres with the caption, Is this what healing looks like? Dr. Torres replied, It's one of its faces. By winter break, Emma's stance had changed. In the garage, in the hallway, inside her own skin. She didn't apologize for occupying space. She didn't bristle at every whisper. She'd learned to choose her fights like routes on a map. Coach Ramirez got approval for the self-defense elective. Emma helped write the curriculum with Jackie. Assertive language, boundary drills, bystander tactics, how to walk away without shrinking. On the first day, the room filled beyond limit. Kids who'd been shoved, kids who were tired of watching friends get shoved, a few former shovers who didn't like themselves. Emma demonstrated redirecting, not humiliating. After, a freshman came up with wet eyes and said, "I didn't know I could say stop without screaming." Emma smiled. You can say stop like a mountain. At night, she still visited the cemetery sometimes, with Angela or Grizzly or Rosie or alone. She'd sit by Sarah's headstone, the one whose new inscription read, Sarah Sullivan. She chose to show up. Emma would touch the cool stone and whisper updates. "I'm learning brakes," or "I stood down," or "Please worked." The wind would move through the palms. Somewhere far off, engines would rise and fall like the breathing of a sleeping giant. Emma would close her eyes and hear Sarah's voice exactly where it had always been, inside the part of Emma that refused to turn hard. Spring arrived in Bakersfield like an engine warming, slow at first, then suddenly full of life. Emma was 12 now, her limbs longer, her eyes sharper, her voice steadier. She had grease in the lines of her fingernails and kindness in the lines of her face. Chrome Palace was home. The club was family. Grief was still present, but it walked beside her instead of dragging her by the wrist. One early Saturday morning, the air smelled like dust and promise. Rows of Harleys shimmered in the sunrise. The Liberty Riders and a few Hell's Angel supporters gathered for a charity rally to raise money for a local children's cancer ward. Engines idled like giant heartbeats. Angela bumped Emma's shoulder. "You ready?" Emma nodded. Helmet in hand, she straddled her bicycle. Still not time for a motor yet. Beside her, Grizzly adjusted his vest and smiled down at her with a pride he didn't try to hide. The club president lifted his arm, and engine roars filled the sky like thunder rehearsing for rain. They rolled out. Emma pedaled furiously beside them on the bike lane, laughter bubbling through her chest as chrome giants escorted her like a queen with training wheels. People along the route cheered. Kids waved. Older folks smiled with nostalgia, remembering their own wild younger hearts. At the head of the convoy, Grizzly raised his chin toward her in approval, and for the first time, Emma believed she truly belonged in both worlds, child and warrior in the making. The rally route cut through California farmland, then into open desert roads where the world stretched flat and honest. Halfway through, the heat hit hard, sun blazing, asphalt shimmering like liquid steel. Emma's bike chain slipped. Her pedaling stopped abruptly.
"No, no, no."
She coasted to the shoulder. Sweat dripped. The convoy kept rolling, huge machines that couldn't turn on a dime. She was suddenly alone in the desert silence. Panic flickered. Voices from her past whispered, "You'll be left. You'll be forgotten. You'll be alone again." Then she remembered Angela's voice. Engines don't lie. When something stops, listen first. Move second. Emma knelt on the gravel, fingers steady. Chain off track, rust on the links, a pebble stuck in the gear. Tools? Just a hair tie and grit. She used the hair tie like a makeshift strap, pulled the gear, freed the pebble, reset the chain. The desert wind watched, impressed. Her hands shook. Her heart did not. By the time the first engine circled back, she was already pedaling to catch up. Sweat streaked, triumphant, a warrior on wheels. Grizzly's eyes widened when he saw her. "What happened?" "Just a chain," Emma shrugged, breathless. He blinked once, slow, proud. "Just a chain," he repeated, reverent. From then on, the ride formation shifted. Emma rode in the middle, protected, not because she was fragile, but because she was one of them. Summer rustled in. Emma excelled at school. The garage buzzed. The club rode miles of open sky. Life felt good. Then one evening at the diner, news fell like a wrench slipped from a high shelf. Tommy Alvarez, club brother, gentle giant, father of a 3-year-old girl, had been arrested. A neighbor had tried to break into his house. Tommy defended his daughter. The man was injured. Police showed up. Legal system complicated the truth. Emma listened as Grizzly slammed his palm on the table, jaw tight. He protected his kid. That's not a crime. Angela rubbed her temple. We know that. Courts don't know him. Marcus leaned forward, voice low and grave. Bail is $25,000. We have almost 20. Emma's fork paused mid-air. The table's energy crackled. Desperation wrapped in loyalty. What happens if he can't make bail? Emma whispered. He waits. Marcus exhaled. Months. Maybe longer. Emma looked around at the people who had shown up at her life's darkest hour. Then she made a choice without hesitation or fear. I have money, she said. My mom left it. And you all helped add to it. Angela's eyes snapped to hers. Emma, no, that's your future. Emma's voice didn't waver. He has a daughter. His future matters too. Grizzly swallowed. Kid, you don't owe us anything. I'm not paying a debt, Emma replied. I'm being who she raised me to be. Silence thickened, heart heavy, sacred. Then Angela nodded slowly, tears bright but not falling. Okay, she whispered. But we'll document it. Loan agreement, legal signature. You get it back? Emma nodded back. That's fair. Across the table, Rosie wiped her eyes openly. Your mama didn't just leave you money, she said softly. She left you a compass. And so, at 12 years old, Emma signed papers that adults would remember for decades. Not because she needed to, because she chose to. Tommy was released the next morning. His daughter ran into his arms like gravity finally worked again. He fell to his knees in the parking lot, crying into her hair. When Emma arrived, Tommy stood and faced her. His shoulders were big enough to block the sun. His voice was small enough to fit in her hands. I don't know how to repay you, he said. Emma shrugged. Be there for her. He pressed his forehead to hers gently, a warrior bowing to a child who had never been small a single day in her heart. I will, he said. Forever. Word spread, not gossip. Legacy. Emma didn't just belong to the club now. She echoed Sarah Sullivan. Grizzly told the story in parking lots. Rosie told it across counters. Angela told it in court and garage and quiet porch nights. She didn't save him with fists, Angela would say. She saved him with choice. Emma didn't feel heroic. She felt steady, certain. And when she walked into the garage one evening, she stopped short. Everyone in Chrome Palace, club members, spouses, kids, stood in a circle. In the middle, a small velvet box. Angela stepped forward. For stepping up when you could have stepped aside, she said, voice soft and proud. For choosing family not by blood but by heart. We honor the road you're walking. She opened the box. Inside was a small silver pin shaped like a wing, no club patch, no official rank, a recognition, a future symbol in seed form. Grizzly pinned it on Emma's jacket. You're not prospecting yet, he said. But you are seen. Emma swallowed hard. Thank you, she whispered. Grizzly shook his head. No, thank you. The room erupted in cheers. Angela hugged her. Sophia screamed. Miguel punched the air. Muffin barked like a celebratory cannon. And for the second time in her life, Emma realized something powerful. Her life wasn't being saved anymore. She was starting to save others. That night, Emma lay in bed, tracing the silver wing on her jacket. She whispered to the ceiling, Mom, I did something good today. In the quiet, in the soft hum of nighttime Bakersfield, she felt an answer, not in words, but in warmth behind her ribs. The road didn't feel heavy. It felt chosen. It felt earned. It felt like hers. By 13, Emma moved through the world like someone who had already seen life's sharp edges, but chose to keep hers soft where she could. The silver wing pin stayed on her jacket like a heartbeat. When she walked into the garage now, she didn't hover at the edge. She stepped into work with purpose. Sophia called her boss. Cousin. Miguel called her tiny foreman. Angela called her kiddo, with a voice filled with quiet awe. Emma called herself trying, and that was enough. She took advanced classes at school. She practiced self-defense with Jackie twice a week. She worked brakes and carburetors. She learned torque not by numbers but by feel. And in moments when the day slipped too heavy, she visited her mother's grave and told her, I'm building something. You started it. I'm trying not to fall off your foundation. Not everyone smiled at Emma's path. Some school parents whispered. A PTA mom clucked her tongue when Emma wore her little leather jacket at pickup. You poor thing, she murmured, fake sympathy dripping like oil from a leaky gasket. A child exposed to that world. Bikers aren't exactly positive influences. Emma tilted her head. Some people think mascara and gossip aren't positive influences. Angela snorted loud enough to earn a glare. Emma continued, they show up for people. Do you? The woman blinked, opened her mouth, closed it again, left. Angela looked at Emma with a pride heavy as chrome. You know what that was? What? Polite, Angela said, shocked. Proud of you. You didn't even threaten to break her nose. Emma grinned. Growth. The day Emma turned 14, Angela rolled a small silver tarp into the driveway like a magician preparing a reveal. Thought you might be ready, she said. Emma tugged the sheet. Underneath lay an engine block, half assembled. Parts labeled, wires waiting, like a puzzle that roared when complete. I get to build it? Emma whispered. No. Angela crossed her arms. You have to build it. Engine's not a gift. It's a promise. Emma stared. But what if I mess up? Angela tapped Emma's forehead with a grease-streaked finger. Mistakes mean you tried. Failure means you stopped. Emma breathed in courage. Breathed out doubt. Okay, she said. Show me. They worked side by side for weeks. Emma scraped her knuckles. Dropped bolts. Cursed once, very quietly, and apologized to the engine. By the 1st of summer, the machine hummed under her palm. She hadn't just assembled metal. She had become the kind of person who could. A warm Friday evening. Sky streaked pink. Grizzly rumbled up the driveway on his Harley, matte black. Scars on the tank like badges. You finished it, he said, nodding toward her engine. Emma nodded. Yeah. You ready to ride? Her lungs froze. Angela raised a brow. Helmet, jeans, boots, no hesitation. Grizzly patted the seat behind him. Emma climbed on, wrapped her arms around his middle. Lean with the bike. Grizzly coached. When life turns, fight the instinct to stiffen. The engine shook beneath her, a living animal. The road unfurled like a ribbon of chance. Wind hit her face. Sunset painted her helmet gold. The highway became a promise. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just felt, free and tethered to something ancient and good. Angela followed in her truck, pretending she wasn't checking the rearview mirror every 6 seconds. When they got home, Grizzly parked and said, You've got road bones? Kid. Emma grinned so wide it almost hurt. Sophomore year came with storms disguised as schoolwork, insecurity, teenage hormones, and the endless noise of other people's opinions. Some called her biker kid like it was dirt. Some admired her like she was myth. A few boys tried to flirt. One said, Think you're tough because you hang with bikers? Emma smiled, sweet and dangerous. I'm tough because I learned not to hit idiots. He backed away. Sophia high-fived her so hard her palm stung. At home, Emma balanced. Homework engine builds garage customers, self-defense class assistants ride nights. Backseat only. For now. Some nights she cried quietly, overwhelmed by everything she wanted to be and wasn't yet. Angela always knocked before entering. Always sat at the foot of the bed. You're growing, she'd say. Growth hurts. That's how you know it's working. One evening, months later, Grizzly cleared his throat over dinner. Club's meeting tonight, he said. We voted. You're allowed in the room. Quiet seat, observer only. No talking unless spoken to. Emma froze. Angela raised a brow. Sophia dropped a chicken nugget. You earned to listen, Grizzly said. Not because you're a kid. Because you handled hardship like an adult. Emma nodded hard enough her ponytail whipped. I won't embarrass you, Grizzly smiled. Impossible. The meeting was a world. Maps, charity plans, ride logistics, mediation between members who disagreed. Talk about helping a club sister fleeing a bad home. Emma listened and realized something deep. The club wasn't chaos. It was order forged from life's wreckage, and she wanted to be part of that order, not for rebellion. For responsibility. At 15, Emma got a part-time job at Rosie's Diner. She bussed tables, refilled coffees, wiped counters with the exact precision her mother once did. Older regulars whispered, She's Sarah's girl, with sorrow and pride braided together. Sometimes, Emma caught Rosie staring at her like she was looking at a ghost with a second chance. One night, after closing, Rosie pulled her into a hug. You're the best parts of her, she whispered. Emma hugged back. I'm trying to be the best parts of me. Rosie wiped her eyes. You're doing that too. Senior year arrived faster than a throttle snap. Emma excelled academically. Teachers fought over recommending her. Colleges responded with letters thick as repair manuals. Full scholarships, honors programs. And one night, alone with her acceptance letters, Emma whispered, Do I chase books or roads? The answer came quietly, as if her mother sat beside her. Both. She chose Cal State Bakersfield, close enough to Chrome Palace, far enough to build her own dawn. She enrolled in business administration and mechanical engineering minor. When she announced it at the club dinner, the room erupted. Sophia screamed louder than the engines. Miguel bragged like he built her himself. Angela hugged her so hard her ribs complained. Grizzly clinked his fork on his glass. To the kid who turned sorrow into steel and kindness, he toasted. And who still says please. Before her first college class, Emma rode pillion again. They stopped at her mother's grave. Emma placed her hand on the headstone. "Mom, I'm going to school," she whispered. "But I'm not leaving you. Or the road. I'll build both." The wind moved like approval. Engines rumbled behind her, a silent salute. Emma stood, a young woman now. Not untouched by pain, shaped by it, not saved by others. Strengthened with them, the world lay vast and open. Emma looked at the horizon and whispered, "I don't have to be her shadow. I can be her continuation." That fall, at 18, Emma walked into the Liberty Riders clubhouse. Jacket zipped, chin high, hands steady. Angela met her at the door, jaw tight with emotion.
"You don't have to do this today," Emma smiled.
"I know." She stepped inside alone. "I want a prospect," she said clearly. The room stilled, not surprised but humbled. Grizzly nodded. "We don't give patches for blood. Only for sweat, service, and character," Emma nodded. "Then I'm ready to earn." Someone slid a cloth vest across the table. A blank slate except for one embroidered strip. Prospect Emma took it in both hands like a vow. She was not wearing a legacy. She was building one. College didn't feel like freedom at first. It felt like 2 full lives jammed into one small body. Morning, business lectures. Afternoon, mechanical labs. Evening, Chrome Palace shifts. Prospect tasks, night, homework, and exhaustion so heavy she sometimes fell asleep sitting up. Prospecting meant serve first, speak last, never cut corners. Emma swept floors, cleaned bikes, fetched coffee, polished chrome until her reflection looked back at her like a reminder of who she was becoming. Not every club member made it easy. Old school bikers believed you earned respect only by being tested. Prospect, grab those tools. Prospect, coffee. 2 sugars. Prospect, clean the back room. And don't cry when you see the spiders. Emma didn't cry. She endured. Because she wasn't there for patches. She was there for purpose. Every night she whispered to herself in the mirror, "I don't inherit respect." I built it one night after finals. She sat on the garage floor, textbooks open, ratchet in one hand, highlighter in the other. Angela walked in and froze. Emma's shoulders were shaking, silent, controlled, but shaking. Angela sat beside her without asking. "You can quit prospecting," she murmured. "It doesn't make you less." Emma wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I don't want less. I want earned," Angela exhaled. "Then rest." Even warriors nap. Emma leaned her head on Angela's shoulder. The garage hummed like a patient church. "You're not proving something to me," Angela whispered. "You're growing into something for you." Emma nodded. It didn't remove the weight, but it made her strong enough to lift it again tomorrow. 3 months into prospecting, a charity ride was planned. Over 300 miles in desert heat to raise funds for veterans' mental health programs. Emma helped set up tents, checked hydration packs, organized medical kits. Halfway through the ride, her bike stuttered, a cough, a jerk, silence. She coasted to the side of the highway, again alone with heat and stillness and doubt pressing like gravity. "Not again," she whispered. She knelt, checked lines, fuel, battery terminals. Then she saw it. Loose ground wire, simple, stupid, fixable. Her hands moved with earned instinct. 5 minutes later, the engine roared back to life, but the roar drowned under something louder inside her. Pride, belonging, competence. When she pulled up to the convoy, Grizzly nodded once impressed. Jackie smirked. Prospect passed her roadside trial, another rider joked. Hell, she handled that calmer than some full patches would. Emma didn't grin. She just breathed, because pride doesn't always shout. Sometimes it settles into your bones. A week later, life tested her again, this time not on the road, but in a parking lot outside campus. Tyler Marsh stood there, older now, quieter, still wearing too much confidence like borrowed clothes. He lifted a hand. "Emma," she paused, waited. He looked uncomfortable. "Good. I I heard about the charity ride. He scratched the back of his neck. And about you fixing a bike in the middle of nowhere. Emma raised an eyebrow. And, he swallowed, hard. I was an ass. Years ago. You didn't deserve it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Emma nodded once. Thank you for showing up. This time he blinked back surprise. You're all right, Marsh, she said, turning away. Just don't let the world turn you mean again. It's a lazy choice. He laughed softly, almost relieved. Yeah, I'll try. She didn't turn. Didn't look back. Forgiveness wasn't for him. It was freedom for her. 2 years passed like wind in spokes. Emma grew into strength that didn't need announcing. Into leadership that didn't need titles. She organized charity drives, helped veterans get jobs, managed donations, balanced coursework, graduated with honors. By 21, she stood taller, not just in inches but in presence. The Liberty Riders had grown too, thanks in part to Emma's organization. Branding improvements, event coordination, and community outreach strategy she wrote as a school project. The club president called a meeting. Vote for full patch consideration. Emma Sullivan. Emma's heart hammered. Her palms sweated. Her stomach twisted. Angela squeezed her shoulder. You've already earned it. Today's just paperwork for everyone else to catch up. Grizzly, old and proud, grumbled. If they don't patch her in, I'm riding to Alaska out of protest. The room chuckled. The vote began. One by one, hands raised, unanimous, not a gift, a recognition. They stood her in the center of the clubhouse, lights dim. Silence thick, air electric. Marcus stepped forward holding the club vest, her vest, black leather, red stitching, heavy with meaning. Angela and Grizzly lifted her jacket from her shoulders. Emma didn't shake. She trembled like a mountain before a sunrise. Marcus slid the patched vest onto her frame. Liberty Riders. Front patch, Emma side rocker. Built, not born back. Full emblem, Emma closed her eyes. Her mother's love. Angela's discipline. Grizzly's pride. Torres's guidance. Rosie's warmth. A community that refused to let her drown in grief. It all lived in this moment. When Emma opened her eyes, she wasn't the little girl alone at a grave. She was a full member. A leader in training. A legacy in motion. Engines thundered outside like approval from the universe. They mounted up, Emma's motorcycle, a rebuilt 1994 Harley Sportster she'd restored herself, rumbled to life. Chrome gleamed under club colors. Grizzly pulled beside her. Angela rolled up on the other side. Jackie behind. Rosie and Dr. Torres watching, crying quietly. Engines roared. Thunder rolled. They rode, down the road, through twilight, into a future written in wind and grit. Emma felt her mother's ghost riding pillion. Warm, proud, present, and as they crossed the county line, Emma whispered, Mom, I'm riding forward. Not instead of you. With you. The road curved. Engines howled. Emma leaned into it, not afraid. Never again afraid. By 25, Emma Sullivan had earned what most people never do. A degree with honors, a full motorcycle club patch. A respected place in her community. A reputation for loyalty and fairness. A business she co-ran, and a purpose bigger than Survival Chrome Palace. Once a modest shop with flickering lights and more busted parts than working ones was now thriving. Expanded bays, new lifts, mentorship programs, veterans mechanical training, and a wall of Polaroids labeled Second Chances. Given here Emma's picture, age 13, holding her first wrench, was the very first in the corner. Angela walked past one day and smirked. You know, you keep building like this and I'll retire. Emma laughed. Liar, you'll wrench in your grave. Angela winked. You're damn right. They clinked coffee mugs like warriors sharing armor. Chapter 67. A Heart Unafraid to Love. Again. Love entered Emma's life the way spring fog rolls into the valley. Quiet. Inevitable. Soft enough to trust before you notice it's everywhere. David Chen was a lawyer, but not the kind with expensive suits and hollow smiles. He worked in community advocacy, tenant rights, small business protections, and expungement programs. He had rolled into Chrome Palace one afternoon with his sleeves up, hair messy, and a question about carburetors. Emma teased him for Googling motorcycle verbs before walking in. He teased her for organizing sockets by emotional alignment instead of size. He didn't stare at her patch the way outsiders sometimes did, with assumptions. He stared at her like she built the road she stood on. On their third coffee, he said, "Your strength doesn't scare me. It inspires me." Emma blinked, unaccustomed to affection that didn't feel like charity or awe. By their sixth walk, he met Grizzly. Grizzly grunted, studied him like a lie detector test, then finally said, "You look like a man who reads contracts." "I do," David replied. "Good. Read her heart that carefully." David nodded. Grizzly approved. Universe agreed. 2 years later, David kneeled in Rosie's diner, ring in hand, pancake syrup still on his lip, and asked, "Ride the rest of this life with me?" Emma didn't cry. She smiled like sunrise had hands. "Yes," she whispered. Chapter 68. The road not just ridden, but built. Emma didn't just ride roads. She built better ones. She founded the Sarah Sullivan Foundation to help foster teens who outgrew the system, single parents fighting uphill battles, youth in need of vocational training, families struggling after medical crises, kids grieving what they lost far too young. Every brochure said the same line: "Nobody stands alone at the hardest moments. Not in our town. Not ever again." The first grant she secured wasn't the biggest in dollar value. It was the biggest in faith. A woman came in trembling, just lost her job, 2 kids. Late on rent, Emma helped her apply for assistance, found temporary work through community partners, and stocked her fridge herself. The woman hugged her and whispered, "You don't know me." "Why do you care?" Emma answered, voice still soft like that little girl who once held a wilted daisy. "Because someone should have cared for my mother like this," the woman cried. Emma held her. The cycle of abandonment cracked. By 30, Emma was a pillar, not because she was loud, but because she was steady. When the Liberty Riders needed new leadership, older heads debated. Some hesitated. She was young. She was a woman. She had chosen college as well as asphalt. But leadership isn't muscle or stereotype. It is consistency, character, and community. Emma earned her perspective. She didn't demand power. She proved responsibility. During a club meeting, Grizzly stood slowly, knees aching but voice solid. "I nominate Emma Sullivan as our next president." Anyone who disagrees forgotten how she rides, how she serves, how she stands. Silence fell thick. Then voices rose. Every voice, unanimous. Emma bowed her head, overwhelmed. "I didn't ride to lead," she whispered. "I rode to belong." Grizzly smiled gently. "That's exactly why you lead." Emma never forgot who she was asked to be by the universe. She funded scholarships for garage apprenticeships, created safe spaces for young women learning trades, partnered with vets' recovery programs, opened grief circles at the diner, modeled after the quiet strength Sarah gave to strangers. She didn't stop riding. She just rode with people behind her, not only beside. 25 years after the day she stood alone in a cemetery with a wilted daisy, Emma returned to the same ground, not alone, but surrounded by engines rumbling like loyal hearts. The Sarah Sullivan Memorial Ride had become a tradition. Hundreds now attended, bikers, families, kids, students, parents, strangers whom kindness had saved. At Sarah's headstone, Emma held her little daughter Lily's hand. Lily pressed a fresh daisy into the grass. "Mama says you were brave," Lily whispered. Emma's voice was steady, proud, full. She was more than brave. She was good. Engines quieted around them. A hush-like prayer drifted across leather and chrome. "Mom," Emma said softly, "I didn't replace you. I carried you forward." She touched the tombstone, warm from afternoon sun. "And now," she whispered, "I bring my daughter to meet her grandmother's strength." Lily looked up. "Can we ride now?" Emma smiled. Sarah's smile. "We always ride." They mounted up, Emma on her custom Harley, Lily secured with a tiny helmet and fierce excitement. David rode on the other side, Angela behind them, still refusing to retire. Grizzly, older, slower, but still leading with presence. The convoy roared alive. Engines thundered in salute. Dust rose behind them like glory. Emma looked once more at her mother's grave, then toward the horizon. "The road doesn't end," she whispered. "It just changes riders." And with wind in her hair, sunlight on chrome, her daughter laughing behind her, and a world she helped build following close. Emma rode forward, not from grief, not from loss, but toward a future she chose and earned mile by mile. The road stretched endless and inviting. The legacy flame burned bright, and Emma, Sarah Sullivan's daughter, biker, leader, healer, led the ride, heart open, wheels steady, carrying love like armor and hope like fuel. If this story touched your heart, ride with us. Subscribe to Bikers Hype, like, comment, share, ride with honor. Family isn't blood. Family is who shows up.